Hey guys, I have a very special episode today for, where is it? For you, because you are going to see something you've probably never seen before and are likely to see again. Now, you all know that we've been playing with this mandolin from about 1920, a little bit before, possibly after. But this is the type O mandolin. It's not very ornate. It doesn't have the big snail looking thing like the harp guitar or the Model O, but this was, without going into great level of detail, Orville Gibson changed the way mandolins look. There used to be the bowl back mandolins, and he kind of invented this. And then the big part about this, which is really cool, is that imagine if I took this body shape here and made it really large. Imagine if I told you I could take something like this and take the body shape and just make the dimensions much bigger and build a cello or a bass out of this using the exact same thing, just increasing the proportions. And then because it started with a mandolin, then I would just name it Mando Cello and Mando Bass. And the whole idea is the Gibson salesmen were going around to teachers and people like that and basically showing them one of these and saying, hey, wouldn't this be great for your classroom? And then the next thing you know, every kid in the school had one. And then, of course, to have the band, you would have to have the cello and the bass. And the bass was a special order from the Gibson shop. And this was a fad in the 20s and went up until before that, even, 1910, 1912, and it lasted for probably pretty much of a decade until Lloyd Loar came along and introduced the Eiffel into the instruments. But I have been very fortunate for the last couple of months to be working on some structural repairs on the granddaddy of the mandolin, and that is the Mando bass. And there's one right behind me right here, and it is remarkable. Let's take a scan up and down of the front and back, and then I'll tell you what's happening. What I'm talking about, that is a giant shape of this, and you're going to see that. I'm going to show you some footage of, we've put the back on, it was off, there was a cross brace going in there, and it is big and heavy, and it's not like this thing. It will kick back at you, and you needed to steam it, you need to go through all kinds of things. So I'm going to show you a lot of footage there, and I'll catch up with you in a couple of minutes. I also want you to pay attention to the iCard up there that I'm going to point at right now. Ken Parker did a video that I have talked about several times, the evolution of the archtop guitar, and in that video he talks about having worked on a couple of these himself, and I find that very interesting. So that said, hover your mouse up there at the end. You're going to want to watch Ken Parker's video. You'll learn everything you need to know about archtops and sonics and the like. And anyway, let's get to the bench and show you what I've done with this thing. catch up on this Gibson Mando bass. This is the coolest thing ever. I wanted to let you know that we had the back of this off. There is a brace that runs right this way across there. It fits into a pocket in a way where you can't put it in one side not right, but you can certainly put it in upside down, and that won't work out for you. It has to be positioned right so it doesn't put some kind of weird tension up here or up here. That has everything to do with tone, of course, but it also has to do with gluing this together. Now, when trying to determine where that brace went, we ended up using a cello peg that you put in, and if you look inside of here before we put the brace back in, you can see where this was hitting that brace, and that helped us not only line up which side went where and whether it was upside down or not, but exactly where between here and here that brace goes. I was just told that this thing in a real luthier's world is called a cello end pin. Now you might be asking yourself, well, there's a place for it over here too. You see that? Well, guess what? This thing, in addition to having frets, which is different than any other stand-up bass, this one had a pin that you could stand it sideways and play it like a guitar. Now, I spent the afternoon gluing up that side, which is a tedious process. The one thing that you really want to pay attention here, I have mini chick flick teal pointer up here. This right here, we know from working on junky arch tops that this part here and the body need to line up. If they're wonky, something's not right, and in a lighter guitar, that is the neck angle. But anyway, you want to keep attention to that while you're gluing everything together. So we're going along as we go. You see how many clamps there are there. Let me show you a little bit of technique as to how we get there. Now, you've got these long clamps, any kind will do. But you have to remember, if you put one of these clamps on a curved surface, pull this up, what's going to happen is they're going to slip. So you're going to get this here, and I'm going to try to get this where you can see what's happening. And you can see that the top is not lining up with the side, so we're just going to get that in space, and we're just going to watch what's going on right there. Let me zoom in here. Now, of course, I would clamp down over to here where we've already glued it and make sure that's set up and do it in the next section, but remembering that the brace is right here, this is probably the stiffest part. So we're just going to pull this clamp in like so until that side is flush. And you're only going to worry about that right here. We're going to move this 100 times before it's over, but once that's flush, then we're going to take one of these clamps right here, and once our glue is on, we'll just clamp that down like so and let it sit. We had glued everything starting way down there on both sides and clamped everything tightly, but the problem is when you're clamping like this, that radius wants to slip. So you put a clamp, say here, on the side of this or over here, whatever. So this clamp will stop the long clamp from slipping, but you can tell we're down to where things are coming together. There's a big heavy block here, and there's one over here. These are both where the cello stand fits in, that hole there and that hole there. So this thing's going to fight us. So I'm going to have to cross clamp at diagonals simultaneously to get this side pulled in from over there and this side pulled in from over there. So in order to have that happen and not hurt anything, I needed to do some clamping calls. Oh, by the way, check this out. There was a little split right here. These clamps are cool. You clamp them down to the edge, get these tight, and then this will actually pull everything together. This is done with the finest hide glue. Back over here, I want to show you that this is some epoxy right here that they use to patch holes in boats while the boats are still out in the ocean. So this long bar clamp here is going to keep everything tight, and it's going to disperse the load against the point of this. You really don't want to break that. But when it comes to clamping this part and keeping everything from sliding, going diagonally, you've got a big piece of wood in here, and that can help you. So what you do is you glue some blocks together. Hopefully they're from the Brush Industrial Lumber Company. Frank W. Olson is ready to help you at Atlantic 15870 in Montebello, California, Cultural Capital World. Anyway, you put some samples together, you glue them up good till you get something that looks like this. Then you put this up here. We're going to go right to that edge. You put that right up there to the edge, and you take a pencil, this new and improved thing they call a pencil, and you draw a line under here, and then you take that to a bandsaw and you cut that radius out like so, and it will sit right there, and you can take advantage of that big heavy block. Now here's the problem: these clamps want to slip whenever you're on a radius. So we're going to take a couple pieces of wood. We're going to find out where this clamp sits here, and we're not going to give that too much space, because what we're going to do is we're going to glue one of these in on either side like that. You see that? Then we'll clamp it. That's how it's done. And this is the radius right there. Okay guys, I want to give you a little bit closer look at what I did here. We stacked up some wood into a pile, and then we found out what the radius was by standing the block of wood up here. And what do you know, we took a pencil with the whole block of wood and drew right here and matched that, and then we cut those out. And this looks like an airfoil on a wing, doesn't it? Anyway, we ended up with this radius that will mount right here. I want to tell you that you really don't want this edge here or this edge here to be sitting here. There's binding here. You don't want to do that. And then most of the weight that's going to take place in clamping this is going to have to go right there, because that is where the majority of the big block that holds this on. If you ever saw the joint in there, you would say, oh wow, this is structurally amazing. Anyway, so when I put this on here, it's still curved, and if I clamp something here, because it's curved, I am going to have to take one of these clamps right here and put it, if I butt that up against the neck there, right there, that's curved a little bit. But then I put this here where this can't slip one way or the other. I'm going to be good. But now, you see this? If this is sitting on a radius, it's going to want to slip, especially if there's heavy pressure being put on. So what I did was, once this radius is cut in here, the back side is still flat. So I found the center of that, and then I took and measured a little bit more than what the head of that clamp is. You see that right there? And then I'm going to glue these blocks on here on either side, like so. I just took cigar box neck material and did that. I'm going to glue those down and then clamp them, so I end up with this. You see that? Then what I'm going to do is on the bottom of this, I think I'm going to take another piece of this wood and just put it in there somewhere so the bottom of the clamp can bottom out and kind of stay in place. But that right there is how I did it, and I'll give you another look here when it's all together. Okay, so I'm going to go along this line right here, and put some of this fancy glue on here. This stuff is something else. I don't want to do both sides because it's going to set up fast. I'm going to find the edge I split this on in the bandsaw and put that up because I don't need that to be as true as everything else. And I'm just going to set that there for a minute. Make sure the edges are okay. So I'm going to go along to the other one right there. It's good for cracks too, I think. I wouldn't use it on any of my junky guitars because we wouldn't want to increase the quality of them at all. You know, I have a degraded reputation to protect, if that's the right word. Okay. Like so. There we go. Now I'm going to put a clamp on it. I have a question for you. Which clamp do you like? You like this one or you like this one? I like this one a lot, in fact. It doesn't have any automatic sliding thing on it, but there's some kind of folk music going on in the background. The nice thing about these is by the time you actually get it on, the glue is set up and you don't need to worry about it at all. Okay, now what I want you to see is this is going to ride to the outside like this, and this clamp could come all the way down to there, like so, but it won't. It will be up in here somewhere. But I'm going to take that down to that edge, and I'm going to put a mark right there, and then, I know the lighting is terrible, guys, but I've cut these blocks here, and I'm going to put one of these blocks right there and glue it in so that clamp head will nestle right in there. Remember, we're dealing with long distances on this Mandobass. All right, there we go. 1, 2, 1 for each side. By the way, they're both matched to the proper radius. And then the last thing you want to do is you want to cut some cork paper. The stuff comes in rolls. You can put some spray on application or dotted glue or something there. But before you put this against the surface and clamp it, you want to put a piece of this cork paper in there like that. Yeah, it took as long to make these as it's going to do the repair, but that's what you do when you're a professional luthier. Okay, so there is the placement on the side of the Mandobass, and I can take my tape here and get both of them here. You want to make sure that you don't have glue drops or any of that there, because once you start cranking this down, all that pressure is going to mess you up. Now it'll hang there like that, and I can take one once I get this set up where I want it, and just do a little bit of that just to hold that bottom where it needs to be, like so. Then I can go all the way over here and find a spot that lines me up with where I want to be with that clamp, because I am going to be pulling this back side in. So if I set that right down in there, I can pull this pretty much anywhere I want over here. I'm not going to put glue on this right away. I am going to make sure that everything dries up nice, lines up nice, but that right there is how it works. Now, if there's any worry but something might slip over here, I can take one of these clamps and put that like so. This isn't going to jump out of nowhere and start running, but just keeping it from moving is a big thing. So we are in a spot now where we've let this edge clamp and crack is trying to manage dry up for a couple days, and we're going to clamp this thing up using our new gadget here. All right, guys, the old Mandobass is starting to kick back on us. We are trying to glue this very end. All the other edges and everything came together really nice, except right here. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a piece of 2x10 that is big enough to go up to there and over here on the other side, and we're going to take and trace that radius onto here, and then we're going to cut it out, and we will have a block that will straddle this, and we'll try to put this all together at one time. Let's go to a bandsaw, a big bandsaw. All right, you can't beat a great bandsaw, but check this out. This will sit right here. We've got a little bit of sanding to do on this edge, and there's some gluing to do right here. But we're going to take cork paper and line this, and then we can just sit this up here like so, and because it is square out here, we can clamp this way, we can clamp this way, whichever way we want. So then we try to pull this in as a unit, and it might go a lot better. But anyway, what's the definition of a luthier? Someone who spends 5 hours building something that will be used one time for 5 minutes on something they should themselves never be working on. Here's 2 of my examples. Hey guys, how do you like that background music? What we've got going on here is we got this Mandobass. There's actually a bath towel, and there's some pieces of 2x4 getting the bath towel that's wet inside the plastic bag. There's a plastic bag over the bench, but we are actually bagging up this Mandobass because at the edge of where we're clamping everything up, there is a stubborn little part right here next to that post that's going that way that just does not want to give up the ghost. So we've got this whole thing bagged up, and we got the steam needle ready to go. There's a hole in the bag right here, and we have steamed this up a couple times and getting this body hydrated, and it is actually moving, believe it or not. Don't tell anybody, they would never believe it. Okay guys, here it is. It's the Mandobass wrapped in everything known to man. Do not try this at home. Go to your grandma's house or something. That way if it messes up, you can just boogie and report the guitar stolen. Anyway, we were having a problem lining up these edges. Everything is glued to here. I don't want to create a union problem with Chick Flick Teal Pointer and his counterparts. Anyway, it's glued to here and to about here. So we made this clamping gluing caul out of a piece of 2x10 that came off of a trailer house remodel in Acton, California, cultural capital of the world, and we put cork paper here and we injected steam. So now we're going to unwrap the body and see if it's still alive. So we're going to take, you hear that piece of wood drop off over there. Let me see what we have. You'll remember that we made these clamping cauls that match the radius of the body. Remember this? And has a pocket for the clamp so everything doesn't slip. And then up here, we put these clamps so when everything slides on the radius, everything is good. Now, my mentor and most of the time friend, Fred Wallachy, made this thing that glued to the point. I fought using it for a really long time until I just finally gave up. But I'm going to drop that off like that, and that piece up there. Let's look at this contraption. This actually reminds me of the episode on Everyone Loves Rain Man, or Everybody Loves Raymond. Remember that? Fred put this together, and it fit the base of the neck up there where it meets the body. We put a few clamps here just in case there was an earthquake, because there's never earthquakes in California, just like rain. And that way if something happened, it wouldn't slide off. And then we've got this clamp here that stopped it from sliding all over the place, and over here, and over here. And now we are going to get the first layer of the garbage bag. It's very important that you use contractor grade, not housekeeper grade, or what's the other one? Oh, Frontier Woman grade. Yeah, she knows nothing about anything other than China that's sold at Walmart. Anyway, this is very serious work. So, it looks like we may still have a pulse. Remember, there's a wet towel in here, and I don't want that to be moldy, is really what's going on. And, oh my gosh, it's a miracle, eh? So, right here, ladies and gentlemen, I haven't checked my demographic lately, so I hope that's accurate. You will see that there are 9-gauge strings going through the crack. So, this crack form, when I was trying to push this together too much, there's 3 here. There's corresponding pieces of tape down at the end, and what we will do is we will fish those through. We will put a cleat. I thought I had one here. We will put a cleat on that, on the end of the string, and then we will pull this over here and wind the string and pull the cleat up and clamp that crack. But right now, it's looking pretty good. This right here is an old cleat or crack clamp, and so we're going to pull this up right here. It's going to take a little bit. We'll loosen this up, but there are no clamps on this, and right now it's looking as if it may just stay where it is, which is what the goal was. So we're going to cross clamp this now right here, and I want you to watch very carefully that gap. Yeah, it's going to pop right together. And you knew it would because I told you it would. I have some land you need to think about in Florida, and also I have some advice for you about a bridge and a cliff if you believe any of this was intentional. Okay guys, we have a real mess going on here, but it's a perfect mess. We have a couple of long clamps, and we have clamps here and here to make sure that when we cross clamp that nothing moves around on us. We have a couple more to put down here as needed. So for example, when I want to run a diagonal clamp to bring this area here together, what I'm going to want to do is have a clamp that holds, yeah, this thing is a little bit heavier than your average base, but we're just going to have that there like that, and then we can just clamp this area diagonally like so. But I have hot hide glue. It is hot, believe me, this is good European hide glue, and I have my guitar Botox needle. I have a couple spacers in here, and one of them is a paint stick that I have beveled the end on, so I can kind of just open this up as necessary. The most important part here is that the end right here in the middle comes together, and putting all of that time and effort into steaming this is making that possible. The guitar, if you will call it that, or the bass, is actually staying where it is. So we are going to get the hide glue up here. This is working really well. Now I want to show you, there are a number of needle sizes. You pick the appropriate one, and then we're just going to go in like so and get up to that edge there, and then I'm going to come over to this side, and we are going to pull out those little stints that are holding that up. And now we will start looking at that. Is lined up good there. That is lined up good there. And so I'll hook that there and get that stable. And now we're going to pull this in just a tad. Perfect. We will start clamping. This is one of them times you can never have enough clamps. Now we're going to have a little bit of work time here. So once we start clamping this down like so, we can loosen this one off, and if we need to come over here like so and pull that in just a tad, we can do that and then readjust our clamp. You want to remember that the back of this is concave, so when you're here it starts to rise up. So if you've got your clamp way down in here and start cranking it down, you may have a result that you don't want. Sorry this is taking so long, guys, but I'm not, because it kind of gives you an idea of what needs to happen. Yeah, we're getting into the end of the work time on this glue, I believe. Just constant adjusting. Wonderful. Okay, now we're getting close. We're on the other side, and we are going to get our syringe in here and pop a nice bead of that in there. And we are so close. We had 5 or 6 millimeters going on and it relaxed enough. Let's pop this one loose. There's still 3 or 4 there, but we're going to be able to pull that in right there. And we can watch this to make sure something is not going to cut loose. Again, we got that one up on the top, so we want to find the radius of this one and start popping that in. Oh my, we're fighting some big wood here. So we're going to get over here. We don't want to clamp that down super tight because we can move the cross clamp around a little bit here and there. Let's pop that out and make sure we've got our glue right there. And then we'll pop that one out. That one popped right too. That's good. The nice thing about this glue syringe is it's got some very small tips if you need it. One last look to make sure that it lines up here at the where the end pin would be on a regular guitar. Yeah, there we go there. We could use just another little tad of hide glue right in there. Once this is all done, we're going to stand it up and get those edges nice, and then we're going to take a very small needle tip and insert what needs to be inserted right where it needs to be. Okay, pop that one off. And there's one more little bit that we can get right here. Perfect. Okay, guys, I want to show you something here. We put these 3 number 9 guitar strings, one here, and one here in the cracks. Now, they got glued in, so it only makes sense that they're not going to want to pull, because we're going to have to pull these up to pull the cleat in place, because the other end of them is over here coming out of the sound hole. So I want to show you here what's going on. Let me zoom in as much as I can here. We'll adjust everything. There we go. This is just a tuner. It's 2 pieces of wood with a hole cut here. And there is some cork paper right here to protect the body of the instrument. So this is tight, you can hear it. You hear that? So when I move this, I've put the end of the string in the tuner, and so now I'm going to tighten it up. You hear that? It's loosening up. And it will get to the point where it's loose enough that it will free up, and at that point I can pull it and pull the cleat into place. But as long as the string is glued in there, there we go. Now it moves. You see that? Now let's flip this over. Hey guys, do you hear that music in the background? Does it make me seem cultured? Well, it doesn't, so the joke's on you. Hey, look, here's what I'm up to. I've got this hot hide glue. Yeah, it is very hot. And this brush. And I've got this winchy thing that I made out of a tuning peg and 2 pieces of wood and some cork on the bottom. And then I've got this 9 string that was fished through a small hole in the other side where the crack is. And we have taken some marker and put a mark on either side of the string and put it through a hole on this cleat, and we've ground down the margins and made it thin, and then we have put a knot in the string and tied a piece of dental floss, believe it or not, on it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up the hot hide glue. Man, I need an apprentice, so I'm not the one that gets burnt doing this stuff. But we are going to put an ample amount of hide glue on this cleat right here, like so. And we're going to flip it around and pull it in place. And the color coding says that this one will be going to the lowest thing. So we'll put that in there. I'm going to flip it around and I'll show you in a minute. There's a little winch on here and we're over it, and we're going to pull it until it gets tight. You hear that? Okay, the winch is on there and it is tight, and now we can just wait for hide glue to dry. While we're waiting for that winch to do its job, there's a couple spots on here that are still a tad loose. So we're going to take some of these old spool clamps. These things are awesome, by the way. They're very old, just like me, which means we're very good. So I'm going to take my Botox glue syringe here, and some of the stuff that's a little bit loose yet, or I see some gaps, I'm going to run down in there. How do you like that music? Yeah? There's a couple little, and it's just by capillary action, because it's hot, runs down in there. So see that? And then up here, there's a little piece, you see that? We're going to pull that back into place. There we go. Put that in hot water. And then we can take the spool clamp, wherever we feel it's loose, Oh, look at that. That works great. Bear with me here. It's amazing how much these are like the mandolin. Right, and then we've got this last one here. I love these old clamps. There we go. Okay, guys, we have taken these string winders off, and now all we have is these remnants of wire. And so what we're going to end up doing now is we've got all of this dental floss, and this 3 pieces of dental floss will pull that wire off, and then we can take our hide glue and touch in those little holes that the strings were in. Now what you want to watch for on your tape is if your tape starts to wear here and turn white, it's getting thin. And the only thing that's stopping this from scraping this whole thing is that tape. So you can change your tape a lot easier than scraping up the whole thing. Believe it or not, there's still some finish here, and we want to try and protect that. I have the most exciting thing to show you. I have been working on this Mandobass for probably the better part of 6 weeks, trying to get the back on. The back is on. All right, this thing is magnificent, and I think the cool thing about it is it had a stand that either could come out the bottom or the side, and you see those frets. You could basically stand here and play this like a guitar, which was unheard of at that time. These tuners are something that belongs on a winch truck in the oil fields, but I'll tell you what, it is something to be able to work on something this old, and face it, it's rare and valuable. And I've got to pull a couple of cleats in, and I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we're going to turn this back over to Fred. And if there's anybody to thank, it's Fred for giving me the opportunity to actually be able to work on something like this, because I would never have the opportunity. So I've really enjoyed this. It's been a long episode, and I think that my experience putting arch tops back together, once I figured out that the neck angle can shift all over the place once you take the back off and all that kind of thing, I think putting this back together, I was fortunate to be able to have that. But again, as I close this out, I would like you to notice that the design of this thing, if you look at the front and the back, somebody made the exact same instrument, but the design was just much bigger. So, thanks for hanging in there. Thanks for watching. This has come a long way since the cigar boxes and the coffee cans. I guarantee you. Give me a like. Give me a subscribe if you haven't. And thanks for watching.